Tears of life. He never used to cry. As a boy, he learned early that tears made people uncomfortable, that men were supposed to swallow their pain and smile anyway. So he did. Through every misunderstanding, every moment of being blamed for things he never meant, he built a dam behind his eyes. But life has a way of breaking through. The first crack came when he realised that being misunderstood wasn't the worst part. It was being unseen. You could be standing right in front of someone, giving them everything, and still feel invisible. He gave his heart to people who only took what they wanted, who twisted kindness into weakness. Male or female, it didn't matter. The pattern stayed the same. Narcissists have a gift for making you doubt your worth, and for years he carried that doubt like a shadow that whispered, "You'll never be enough." There were tears then, angry ones, bitter ones, not the kind that fall easily, but the kind that burn behind your eyes when you're too tired to fight the lies anymore. And then there were the gentler tears, the ones that came years later when he watched his children raise their own, strong, patient, loving parents, better parents than he'd been, because life had taken them too far too soon. Watching from miles away, he'd seen photos and videos, his grandchildren laughing, his children smiling, and the ache in his chest would swell with both loss and pride. He wept then quietly, tears that didn't ask for pity, only peace, tears that carried gratitude for healing, for growth, for second chances he didn't think he'd deserve to witness. In those moments he understood tears aren't signs of weakness. They're proof that you've survived every version of yourself, even the ones no one else cared to understand. The first crack came when he realised that being misunderstood wasn't the worst part, it was being unseen. There's a particular kind of loneliness that grows in the spaces where your truth goes unheard. He could speak plainly, openly, honestly, could hand over the softest parts of himself like offerings, and still watch people look straight through him, as if he were nothing more than a shadow passing across the wall. You can stand in front of someone, pouring out everything you have, and feel yourself disappearing inside the silence of their indifference. He learned that invisibility doesn't always come from being alone. Sometimes it comes from being surrounded by people who only notice you when they need something. And he had given so much, too much if he were honest. He gave his heart to people who treated it like a temporary shelter, a place to rest until they found something more exciting, more convenient. The pattern repeated with painful predictability. Male or female, didn't matter. The damage felt the same. Narcissists have a talent for it, for turning generosity into obligation, tenderness into weakness, compassion into something they can twist into a weapon. They chip away at you in small, subtle ways, questioning your intentions, rewriting your reality, undermining your sense of self until their voice replaces your own. After a while, he carried that doubt like a shadow, one that moved with him, whispering quietly, "You'll never be enough, not for them, not for anyone." That was when the tears began, not the soft kind that slipped down your cheek without warning, but the stubborn kind that refused to fall. the kind that build pressure behind your eyes, burning sharp, almost metallic. The ones you hold back because letting them go feels like admitting defeat. Tears that form when you're exhausted from fighting the lies, the distortions, the versions of yourself that other people tried to force upon you. They were tears of anger, yes, anger at the way he'd been treated, at the way he'd allowed it, at the loneliness he carried even while surrounded by people who claimed to love him. But beneath the anger sat something deeper, grief. Grief for years he spent trying to prove his worth to people who were never capable of seeing it. Grief for the boy inside him who learned too early that silence was safer than honesty. Grief for the man he might have become if someone, anyone, had looked at him and said, I see you, I hear you, you matter. Those tears came slowly, reluctantly, but when they finally fell, they didn't just roll down his face, they carved a path back to himself. The gentler tears came slowly, years after the storms had passed. They were the kind that didn't sting or overwhelm, the kind that arrived like soft rain on a quiet afternoon. They showed up when he least expected them. A photo sent to his phone, a short video message, a blurry snapshot of his grandchildren running through sprinklers or falling asleep on their parents' chests. He would watch his children, now adults with steady hands and patient voices, guiding their own kids through moments big and small. He saw them kneel to listen instead of yell. He saw them encourage instead of criticize. He saw them love openly in ways he once struggled to show. And though it hurt to admit it, he felt something like relief. They had become everything he once wished he could be for them. Distance had shaped them all. Life had taken his children to another state, far enough that he couldn't drop by, far enough that birthdays and holidays were filtered through screens, far enough that he couldn't undo the years when he wasn't ready, wasn't healed, wasn't whole enough to be the father they deserved. But even from miles away he could see the evidence of their strength, their resilience, their tenderness, and that's when the tears would rise, not with bitterness, but with a deep, aching gratitude. He cried because they turned out well. He cried because they found the love he struggled to give. He cried because, despite everything, he was allowed to witness their happiness. These were tears that didn't ask for pity or redemption, they asked only for acceptance, the quiet understanding that life had unfolded in ways he never expected, yet somehow still brought him moments of grace. And in those moments he finally understood something he wished he'd known long ago. Tears don't weaken a man, they mark the places where life touched him deeply, where he grew, where he healed, where he broke and rebuilt himself. They are proof of survival, proof of softness beneath the armour, proof that even the wounds no one else could see had finally begun to close.